Hello, and welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto, attorney at law in the state of Michigan. I'm practicing law now for 24 years in the fields of consumer protection and lemon law. Almost 25, believe it or not. Technically speaking, I think the admission to the bar certificate I've got around here somewhere says September 21st is the anniversary, so I'll let you know when that hits, and I'll have been practicing law for 25 years. But right now I can say more than 24. I often write about this stuff for places like Jalopnik, Opposite Lock, and Road and Track most recently. And, my specialty is lemon law. So today we're going to talk about how to set up your lemon law case. How to set up your lemon law case. If you have a car that's defective, you think it might become a lemon, or you just bought a brand new car and you want to know what your rights are and how to protect your rights along the way, this is what you do, how to set up a lemon law case. So first of all, remember that all 50 states have got lemon laws. They vary slightly from state to state, but generally speaking, they protect you when you buy a brand new car or truck for personal use, and that vehicle is out of service a certain number of days in the first year or a certain number of times within the first few years. And in Michigan, it's 4 times in the first 2 years or 30 days down in the first year. We don't see as many of the 30-day down cases as we see of the 4 times or more cases, but I do see them from time to time. So that's what you're going to be doing, is counting how many times your car's been in the shop for the same problem or condition, or how many days it's been in the shop cumulatively, okay, in the first year. So that's what you're looking for, what you need to document along the way. And if your vehicle becomes a lemon, like I said, they've got these laws in all 50 states, then generally speaking, you get the manufacturer to buy the vehicle back from you or replace it with one that's not defective. I've got clients who say, I'd never buy another vehicle from that company no matter what. And I've got other clients who say, you know something, I just got a bad one. And it's ironic because I've had clients who said, I got a bad GM, I'll never buy another bad GM, I'm going to go buy a Ford. And I've also had clients with bad Ford who go, I'll never buy another Ford again, I'm going to go buy a GM. And I'm tempted to have these people get together and meet just to understand that we all can just get along. But that's beside the point. I understand if you had a bad feeling about how you were treated by a dealership or a manufacturer, you might never go back to that dealership or that manufacturer. But the key here is that the manufacturer is the one that's buying your vehicle back or trading you to a new one. It's not the dealership. So how you handle your relationship with the dealership is one thing, but they're not the ones who are buying your vehicle back. And then if you do get your vehicle bought back, your attorney fees and your court costs will get paid by the manufacturer as well as whatever they have to give you for the defects in your vehicle. So this won't cost you anything, but before you even contact an attorney, there are some things you need to do, and this will help your case if you do them. So the most important thing to remember is that repair orders are what drive these cases. I tell my clients all the time that the paperwork is what makes or breaks your case. Now, you can still win your case without it, but it makes it much more difficult. So what happens is this: you buy a brand new car or truck, you're at the dealership, you're signing documents, you walk out of there hopefully with an armload of documents. You should always get copies of documents you sign. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to people on the phone. They say, Steve, I bought a car. I ask them a simple question and they go, I don't know. And I say, well, how do you not know, for instance, whether you signed an arbitration agreement? How do you not know what your down payment was? How do you not know whether you got an employee discount? And that's all in the paperwork somewhere. And I've had people say, well, I didn't save the paperwork, or I didn't keep the paperwork, or that I didn't even get copies of it. Anything you sign your name to, you should get copies, you should hang on to. And by the way, don't keep it in your glove box. I've had clients tell me they brought their vehicle to the dealership with all the repair orders in the glove box, and they went to pick their vehicle up, and somebody had been shuffling through their glove box. And I've actually had people tell me that what the dealerships are doing is they're digging through your glove box to look at your repair history, which, number one, they can check a lot of the repair history on their own computers nowadays, but they don't know what you've done at other dealerships or oil changes, for instance. But don't even let them be tempted. Take the paperwork out when you get home and put it in a file folder and stick it in a filing cabinet someplace, or stick it someplace, but hang on to it. The key is to have all this paperwork. So purchase agreement, or in Michigan, the application for title will work. You just need a document that shows who you bought the car from, the date you bought it, what you paid for it, and so on. I've had people who told me they bought a brand new car and didn't realize that the demo box was checked on their RD108. And they say, well, I bought a brand new car. And I say, well, according to this, it was a demo. And they're like, you're kidding me. Well, it's a bad thing if your attorney's the one who's telling you you didn't get a brand new car. So the documents will explain a lot of this stuff. So when you sign documents at the purchase, hang on to them. I would urge you to read them before you sign them, but most people don't. But hang on to copies after you sign them. But then the most important thing from that point forward is every time you go to the dealership, there's certain things you need to do. Every time you go to the dealership, do these things. So let's suppose, typical example, you get up one morning and your car makes a weird noise when it's starting. I'm just making stuff up here. So you get in your car, you take it to the dealership, you're early, so you pull up and they got the doors down, you honk, they raise the door, you drive into the lane where the service department is, and a service advisor comes out and greets you and says, "How may we help you today?" And this is important. Explain to them exactly what happened and make sure they write that down on the repair order. I know a lot of people who go in, they toss the keys to the technician and they walk away, and they never do anything besides telling that person what's wrong with the car. They come back later and they pick the car up. It's vitally important when you drop the vehicle off, they will give you a document indicating you've dropped the vehicle off. Get that document from them and save it, but before you put it away, look at it and make sure they wrote down on it what your complaint was. And I've railed about this many times. I myself have gone into a dealership where I knew what the problem with my car was. I had a car that ate timing belts for lunch, okay? And I would go into the dealership and say, "Hey guys, another bad timing belt, fix it." And I had technicians write down things like "no crank, no start." Well, that's true, it won't crank and it won't start, but that's not what I said. I said it's got a bad timing belt. And I used to actually sit there and argue with the gentleman and say, "I need you to write bad timing belt." And the guy goes, "Well, they'll know what to look for if I write no crank, no start." I said, "Really?" If I saw no crank, no start, the first thing I do is test the battery, okay? And I'm telling you it's a bad timing belt. So make sure they write down what you're saying. And if they refuse, and I've had people tell me, they say, the dealership refused. The guy just said, "No, I'm not going to write that down." You have to ask them, could you at least write "customer says blah, blah, blah." Customer says car made funny noise. Customer says clunking from the right end. Because they'll write that down. And if they won't write that down, I would ask the gentleman when he hands you your copy of the repair order, say, "Can I borrow your pen?" And take the pen and write it yourself. And see if you can get them to initial it. If they won't initial it, at least you can say, "Well, I wrote this was at the dealership. The guy wouldn't write it down." But the point is that you need to document when and how often you've complained about things with your vehicle. And I've had people tell me, they say, "Steve, I brought my car in the first time." They didn't even write it up. The guy goes, "Hey, it's under warranty. Don't worry about it." They didn't write it up. Or I brought it in and I said, "It's got this problem." They wrote down something different. Like I said, "No crank, no start" when it's a bad timing belt. And again, that might be their code, that might be what they do, but the point is you need these documents to show when you brought it in and what you complained of. And the reason that is that the law says that a vehicle can be bought back if it's got a defect or condition that hasn't been repaired properly. And defect is quite specific, it seems, but condition's broader. And this is a consumer statute, it's a remedial statute, and because of that, it'll be read more broadly in favor of the consumer. And so this law is designed to protect you. So I'll give you the best example. You get up one morning and you can't get your car to start. It cranks over, but it won't start. So it's towed to the dealership and they write "no crank, no start," even though it cranked. So they're going to mess around with it. They call you up and they say, "Guess what? We figured out the problem was there's a fuel problem. You had a bad fuel filter. We replaced your fuel filter. Come get your car." So you go get your car, you drive it for a couple of days, you come out one morning, it cranks, but no start. No crank, no start, no, it cranks and no start. So you have it taken to the dealership again, they jimmy around with it a little bit, and they come back and they say, "Hey, we figured it out. It's something with your electronic control module, your ECM. We replaced your ECM, car runs great now," okay? And then you have it for a few days and you're driving it and one morning it won't start. You call them again, they write "no crank, no start." and they call you back and they say, "Hey, turns out you needed all new spark plugs. We don't know why, but it needed all new spark plugs. So we replaced all your spark plugs." So now you've hit 3 times down for the same condition, okay? The same condition is it wouldn't start, okay? But if the law simply said same defect, the manufacturers would say, "Hey, this is 3 different defects. The first time it was a fuel filter, second time it was the ECM, the third time it was the spark plugs." When we all know it wasn't those things, otherwise it would have fixed it, okay? If it was simply a fuel filter, it wouldn't have gone bad a week later, 2 weeks later. If it was simply the ECM, it wouldn't have gone bad a week or 2 later. So clearly they're just poking around in the dark and they haven't figured it out yet, okay? So defect or condition is more broad, and condition is It won't start. Okay, so when you hit that magic number of 3 in Michigan or 25 days in the shop, okay, you can then send a last chance letter. But the key here is that before you do this, I am hoping, and so is your future attorney, I'm hoping that you have in your possession the purchase agreement and all of the repair orders documenting that you went in and complained about a no-start condition, okay? And I've had people tell me, they say, Steve, I've heard you talk about this before, I've spoken to you before, I'm even a former client of yours, and I couldn't get them to write it on the repair order. Well, at least you tried. But I've had so many people say, you know something, Steve, every time I go to the dealership, I'm in a hurry, they're in a hurry, the place is crowded, and the guy just scribbles down, no crank, no start, or whatever he writes down, hands me the repair order, and I leave, and I haven't got time to stick around and complain and say, hey, dude, you need to correct this. And I'm trying to tell you right now that it's important that you do that. So before you leave the dealership on any repair attempt occasion, that you look at it and that you actually say, okay, does this document what I complained about? And it's kind of interesting because I've actually spoken to people before where I've deciphered this. They've come into my office, they send me the repair orders, and I see 3 repair orders. And I see the one that says, replace fuel filter. I see the one that says replace spark plugs. I see the one replace electronic control module. And the complaints are close, but not quite the same. And I figured it out, but I've had people say, yeah, no, it's the same thing every single time. But the repair orders don't look like it. So the key is that you want to get the repair orders to look like they're documenting the same thing each time, if they are, okay? So in other words, this is a communication issue. The key is that what you tell them that they write down. And like I said, I know a lot of dealerships out there will hear what you tell them and then translate it into something else. But do what you can to get them to write it down. I've also had people tell me, they say, Steve, I brought the car in for this condition 2, 3, 4 times, and after a certain number of times, they literally stopped helping me. They literally say, we can't fix this, so don't even leave your car, just take it and go, okay? And so I tell my client, I say, well, did you get a repair order? And they say, no, they didn't work on the car. I say, no, a repair order is not just to document that they worked on your car. It's to document that you brought the vehicle in and complained about a defect. Because if those visits didn't count, a manufacturer would tell its dealers, simply stop working on the vehicles after the second repair attempt. And no one would ever get the 3 or 4, no one would ever have a lemon law claim, okay? So the point is that you want to document that you were there. So I tell people, they say, well, Steve, they've told me never come back, we can't help you. I say, then go to another dealer and tell them, hey, look, I'm bringing my vehicle here, I don't like this other dealer. And if they refuse to work, and I say, would you at least give me a repair order that says I was here? Write anything you want on it, but just write that I was here. And they'll almost always do that for you, okay? So you can get a repair order that says you were there, but they can put down, did not work on a customer's car, but customer complained of this. But we've told customer not to come back. They won't write that down. But if you ask for a repair order, they'll give you one. And quite often they'll give you one and they'll write NPF on it, which stands for no problem found. And if they want to do that, great. But at least you've got a document proving that you were there. So there comes a time when you hit the threshold. Hopefully you've got the paperwork. Like I said, in Michigan, it's 3 times for the same problem, or 25 days in the shop in the first year, where you then send the last chance letter. And the law is quite clear that when you hit one of those 2 points and you want to invoke the lemon law, you have to send a last chance letter to the manufacturer. And I know a lot of people who say, Steve, I've already complained. I wrote letters to the dealership. I wrote letters here. I wrote letters there. It's important. You have to have sent a letter in writing, certified return receipt requested through the U.S. Postal Service to the manufacturer. And people say, well, Steve, where do I write to General Motors? Well, you open up your owner's manual. In the back, it'll say, for warranty service, here's what you do. Go to the dealership, go here, go there. And at the very end, it'll say, if you're not happy with that, write to us at this address. That address is where you send the last chance letter. People have FedEx letters. Believe it or not, that doesn't count. The law is very specific. It's got to be mailed, U.S. mail, certified, return receipt requested, where you get the green card back, okay? So you take the vehicle, all the documentation for it, and you write up a last chance letter. And interestingly enough, there's not a magic formula for what the letter's got to say. It simply has to say, I've got a vehicle, here's the VIN number, I bought it brand new, I think it's a lemon, I demand that you fix it. You can write that any way you want as long as you send it certified, return receipt requested to the manufacturer, address back the owner's manual. But the key here is that you have to send something. Now, most attorneys will do these for free. I write these for free all day long. I mail them for free. I won't charge you for postage. I'll send one for you, and you don't have to hire me. I don't care. These are so easy to do. It's a form letter. You fill in the 3 things that say, VIN number, name of the client, and what's wrong with the vehicle. Manufacturers almost always ignore these, but the key is you got to get that in the mail and get it sent. You'll get the green card back, and they'll almost, like I said, almost always ignore it, meaning that they won't do anything. They won't contact you, nothing. Once in a while, they'll contact people and say, well, tell us about it. Well, the law says that the only proper response to a last chance letter is where they're going to call you back and say, here's where to take it for the last chance repair, bring it to them, and they will repair it. And if they do take you up on it and give you the date and time and tell you where to take it, you've got to do that, let them have the last chance, try, and if that fails, you can sue them. But likewise, if they ignore the last chance letter or don't give you the last chance repair attempt schedule appointment, then you can simply sue them also. So the key here is that you keep track of all your documentation, save your purchase documents, and then when you take your vehicle in for service and repair at any dealership, make sure they write it up, whether they work on it or not, and make sure they write down what you're telling them. Hang on to all of those and count them. And by the way, when you're counting days, it's 25 or 30 days. Parts of days also count. So you drop the car off on a Friday and pick it up on a Monday morning. That's all Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's 4 days, not 2. You count weekends, holidays, you count it all. And it's days or parts of days, okay? So once you hit the point, you send the last chance letter, and then from that point, you're good to go. You can always call an attorney anywhere along the process, or at the end of all of this, hopefully you've done it correctly, you can call up an attorney and say, hey, Steve, I listened to your podcast, or I watched you on YouTube, or I read your website, I followed all your instructions, and I think I have a case. Let me send you my purchase agreement, all of my repair orders, and a copy of the last chance letter. And I get those calls, and it's like, great, someone's done their homework, and that's exactly how it works. So that's how to set up your lemon law case that will help you immensely, and that will help you protect your rights. Questions or comments, as always, shoot them my way, lehtoslaw.com. Also, email me directly if you want a last chance letter. I'll send you one for free, but I'll also send it for you for free if you're in Michigan. lehtoslaw.com, LEHTOSLAW.com. I'm on Twitter at Steve Lehto, at STEVELEHTO. And this show is on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play, and YouTube. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye-bye.